Some definitely some important things to consider beforehand. Just one is to talk with your fiance and to kind of see about the overall vision of your wedding looks like, and also like what your budget looks like.
When starting the wedding planning process, there are a lot of different things that couples have to think about, and sometimes, photography can be a bit an intimidating thing for them to look into because it can be overwhelming. But what are some things that you think couples should do before they start contacting wedding photographers?
I guess some things that are important to consider before contacting photographers. I know contacting photographers can be kind of exciting. I know sometimes you've been following photographers or filmmakers or videographers for a while, and you kind of enjoy their work, and just that, if I ever get married, I'll definitely want to try and check in with them, and which is important. Kind of knowing what kind of photographer and videographer you'd like to have. But definitely some important things to consider beforehand is to talk with your fiance and to kind of see about what the overall vision of your wedding looks like, and also like what your budget looks like. I know budget is not a fun word at all to talk about, um, especially when planning something like your wedding. However, it does kind of give you a place to kind of start and to see what you're working with. And should you feel your budget is not as big as you originally thought, it'll give you options to see where else I can get funds from. Can I take some extra time at work, or can I kind of check into some family members that might be able to assist with wedding planning? And just knowing overall what your spend might be for your wedding is super important. It'll give you kind of like a way to see where you're at. Also, another important thing to consider as well, strongly before checking into photographers, is your venue and your wedding date. Typically, you kind of have an idea of when your wedding date is when you actually reserve your venue. So definitely having a solid venue in mind, or maybe like a deposit on your venue, would be very, very beneficial, so that you can actually have a solid date on when your wedding will happen. And therefore, when you start to talk to your photographers and florists and videographers, you'll be able to have meaningful conversations about their availability. The worst thing is liking a photographer, videographer, and all of a sudden they're not available at all on the date that you actually ended up choosing, because you didn't have a venue in mind yet. So just having these things kind of situated or lined up, or at least having an idea of what it is that you're planning, will help before going into checking into photographers.
I guess in relation to that, a lot of couples, for example, say a couple already have their wedding venue and their wedding date reserved. How early should they get in touch with the photographer? Is there such a thing as too early, or is there such a thing as, I don't know, too late?
Right. That's a great question. And if you do have your wedding date a little more solidified and your venue possibly reserved, I feel like it's never too early. Whether it's a year or two or three out. What happens is, when you look into getting a photographer, you have the ability to reserve them for your wedding, because wedding dates do fill up quickly, especially if the photographer or videographer is very popular, busy, or very unique. It's important that you're able to reserve them once you know that you really want them for your wedding. So the sooner you can actually reserve them and kind of just lock them in for your wedding date, the better. There's definitely nothing wrong with planning early and checking into that once you know you have a wedding date.